Boston and Brooklyn, it is one of the marquee matchups of this playoffs. And to help us unpack what we saw in a electric game one that saw the Celtics squeeze out a victory at the buzzer 115-114 over the Brooklyn Nets is Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated. Chris Mannix, what an absolute cracker of a game one. Is that what you were expecting? And any takeaways from what was one of the games of the weekend?
No, not at all what I expected. Especially, I mean, Kyrie's always an adventure in Boston. Yeah. Like, he's created this narrative that, I don't know, like, he just is nuts. And, you know, how he seems to let the Boston fans kind of creep into his head and push him in a direction where he has to respond almost every single time is wild. And what's also wild is that it seems to motivate him. Like, you know, every time he gets the Boston fans climb on him, he just seems to get hot and make shot after shot. And watching him last night just go off, you think for 3 quarters and 10 minutes that this is how it's going to end. It's going to be, you know, the Kyrie revenge game 6.0 if you go back to last year's playoffs. And so that, I mean, that was the first, you know, thing that just stuck with me, how he continues to let the Boston fans seemingly get to him. The second part was, I've watched that final possession, the offensive possession, like a dozen times.
You were expecting Marcus Smart to 100%
expecting Marcus Smart to shoot that. I've covered Marcus Smart in Boston for what, 9 years now? He's been in the league. Like, every other year he pulls that shot. He was 4 for 9 from 3-point range in that moment. Like,
say your prayers, folks. That may never happen again. And what a
that was going up. That was going up. So for him not only to not take the shot, but have the presence of mind to find Tatum in that spot, I mean, unbelievable. That was the true embodiment of the evolution of Marcus Smart.
Did seem like some real growth. I never thought I'd see the day myself, bro.
I mean, there were some possessions in that fourth quarter coming down the stretch where, you know, Marcus did call his own number a couple of times and did not come up with scores in that moment. Yeah. And you're thinking, oh God, like, here we go again. And I was 100% expecting himself to call his own number in that moment, and he did not. Great pass, incredible moment. Jason Tatum, for me, like, obviously, incredible game, 31 points. But to me, it's the 8 assists. This season, when he has 5 or more assists, the Celtics are like 26-10. So, you know, a lot of the improvement for the Celtics this season came in figuring out how to move the ball better. Chris, what was it that they did that allowed them to unlock, you know, this kind of like offensive and defensive explosion over the course of the series for the Celtics? What did Udoka do?
I think he just, like, one of the reasons Ime Udoka was second on my Coach of the Year ballot, just behind Monty Williams and ahead of Taylor Jenkins, who was fantastic all year long, was I give Ime credit for coaching through the struggles. Like, this was a Celtic team that had so many bad habits, that didn't know how to do certain things, from kind of defensive philosophies with the way they switch now, which is what they didn't do under Brad Stevens, to pushing Tatum and Brown to become more of facilitators. That's not something that had to do in recent years. In recent years, they've had traditional point guards, whether it was, you know, Isaiah Thomas briefly early on, Kemba Walker or Kyrie Irving. They have been able to defer to the primary playmaker more times than not. So all season long, Ime was pushing them. You got to pass more. You got to be a facilitator. You got to move the ball. And it really wasn't until early to mid-January that they started doing that they started, you know, kind of looking to be more passers than scorers. And that game one was proof positive. I mean, Tatum, you know, a lot of times when he made the right pass, previous years he would have forced up a shot or taken a three-point shot, taken one of those terrible Kobe shots that he's become obsessed with over time, the kind of mid-range jumper, fade away along the baseline, whatever. Yeah. He's just different. He's different now, and that's something that he and Jaylen Brown have been pushed and pushed and pushed on since the start of the season. It really took until the midway point for them to actually start to get it. Just one more thought on Marcus Smart real quick, only because Smart, like, I mean, I do some work over at NBC for pre and post game show there, and from day one, I was jumping up and down on Marcus Smart. I didn't believe he could do this. I didn't believe he could evolve into the player he's become. And he saw everything. Like, he sees everything. And he's used that all season long, the people that don't believe he can be a primary playmaker. So, like, Marcus, to his credit, has, like, absorbed all the hate, like, taken it all inside him and pushed it out in the right direction. That's an incredible credit to him.
I also kind of forgot about Jaylen Brown's defense, you know, because everything, when you think about the Celtics, you're like, all right, who's going to be the man? Is it Brown or is it Tatum? But, like, what Tatum does on offense, Jaylen Brown does on defense. And I think we saw a lot of that. But I think the real reason the Celtics are on is because Nia Long is hanging around the facility. Everyone on the roster has a crush on this woman. You want to play your best when she comes. She's not coming all the time. So you better act right when she shows up.
Speaking of surprises showing up, Al Horford, 20 points, 15 rebounds. A lot of the talk about the Celtics once Robert Williams went out, the Time Lord, was, okay, like, to your point, Udoka has implemented more switching. So how do they piecemeal this together? And of course, you know, if you had to lose one of your important players, I guess Williams would be the guy that you think, okay, the Celtics can survive this. But they got some great play out of Al Horford. Your thoughts about what Horford did in Game 1?
And is it sustainable?
It's sustainable. You know, I was worried early on for Boston in that game because 18 fouls called in the first quarter. I mean, their depth is not great in the front court without Rob Williams. Really, just Grant Williams, and you know, you go deeper into that bench, you start looking at guys that you don't want to start playing. But Al, to me, was one of the most underrated pickups of the offseason. I mean, not many people watched him play in Oklahoma City last year, but he really rehabilitated himself with the Thunder. Like, he washed off the stench of that one season in Philadelphia. And even though he only played half the year, he proved that he still had something left. And we've seen that all season long. One of the reasons that they can survive without Rob Williams, at least in the short term, is that even though you miss some weak side shot blocking with Rob Williams, you don't have to fundamentally change what you do with Al Horford and Grant Williams and Daniel Tice in that lineup. So with Al Horford at 5, you can still switch everything in the same way you did with Rob Williams. Imagine if, like, Al wasn't there. Like, in a different reality. Like, let's say Enes Freedom was still there. Like, could you imagine trying to play that defense with Enes out there on the floor? You couldn't do it because you can't switch him onto everybody the same way. You cannot do it.
You can't even Nintendo Switch him. You can't do anything.
Absolutely would not be possible. Takeline is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports through Underdog's slick mobile app and easy-to-use website. You can draft your favorite NBA players in minutes and compete for cash prizes every single night of the season. Just head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download their app from the App Store / Google Play Store, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Pinky to the corner of my mouth like Dr. Evil, a current reference in pop culture, with the promo code Takeline. So what are you waiting for, folks? Are you waiting for another current pop culture reference? Sign up with the code Takeline, get your deposit match, and draft your NBA Dream Team today.
No, that to me is why, like, that not just Al, but like Al, Grant, and Tice. It was another, like, Brad Stevens really should win Executive of the Year. I don't even know who's the number 2 choice. Not a media vote, obviously, but I mean, he did things, guys, that, like, Danny Ainge would never have done the things that Brad Stevens did. Never in a million years. He would never have forked over an unprotected first-round pick to get Al Horford and get Kemba Walker off the books. Never, ever, ever would have done that. I highly doubt he would have given up the kind of draft capital you need to get Derek White, who's also been huge for this team this year. I mean, Brad, in getting Al Horford, in acquiring Daniel Tice, who, by the way, he got killed for at the deadline. Like, remember, it's like, you only got Tice for Schroeder. Tice got a crappy contract. You couldn't get a first for Dennis Schroeder. Like, that was available. He only gets Daniel Tice for it. Like, those two guys, Horford and Tice, are the reason this team is here right now in the kind of position that they're in.
I guess we simply must talk about the vibe in the arena, the double bird flip off behind the head move from
Does
Kyrie.
he think they're not gonna see that? Like, does he think he's gonna get away with that?
I think he's decided he's walking away from this playoffs with $0. That he just decided.
That's my take on. Here's the thing. Now, there was some outrage. There was like a tweet. I think it was Barstool. It was like, "There's kids in the arena." I'll tell you right now. If as a child I was at Madison Square Garden and Reggie Miller flipped me off in a playoff game that the Knicks won, that would be one of the greatest memories of my life for absolutely ever. Forever, that would be an absolutely thrilling thing to reflect upon. I mean, he's going to get fined, right? Which, of course, the NBA has to do that. At the same time, it's kind of like, it's a little bit of spice for the pot, right? It's the playoffs. We enjoy this, isn't it? It's a nice thing to enjoy, isn't it? What was your view of that situation?
I thought it was a riot because, again, like I said at the top, like, Kyrie just allows Boston fans to get into his head in ways that he's never allowed Cleveland fans to do. Like, Cleveland fans have just as much right, if not more, to be pissed off at Kyrie. He walked away from a true championship contender. He walked away from a team he won a title with. But he's never let the Cleveland fan base bother him in the way that he lets the Celtic fan base. I mean, you know, like, even the times when he's not, and I'm watching him most of the game, partly because he's going off the entire time, but even the times when he's not flipping off the crowd, he's reacting to them. Like, he's communicating with people sitting in the baseline. He's kind of shrugging his shoulders, moving his hands as he's hearing things people are saying to him. So he's not blocking them out one bit. Now, I'm curious to see what the fine is for this. I mean, there were people around the Celtics that were like pushing for a suspension.
I mean, that's crazy. That's truly insane.
I agree.
I mean, you might as well try it, right? You might as well throw the Hail Mary,
exactly,
but like, that's not going to happen.
Like, well, the way it was, I was sitting in the press room and I heard from a couple of people on Sunday night where they're like, oh, you know, he did this once here, then he did it there, then he's walking in the tunnel and he's cursing out whoever as he's going that way. So it's like, when's enough? When do you have to, do that? So I guess you could push for it. It's not going to get suspended, but he'll get the heftiest fine you could possibly get for that. And I don't think he cares. I think he's going to keep responding in that exact same way.
So a 1-point win at the buzzer, but some indicators for the Nets that I think you could spin as positive. KD had a bad game, and as we've seen all season, and particularly in the run-up to the playoffs, if the Nets are going to need both of their guys, KD and Kyrie, to really go off for them to have a chance to win. It took both of them going crazy to beat the Cavs, etc. And they didn't, you're expecting Patty Mills and Seth Curry to space the floor a little bit more and allow Kevin Durant some more space to operate. Not that he shoots over everybody, but still make his life a little easier. And, one shot for Patty Mills. Seth Curry was 1 for 4 from 3. So there's a place where you expect a little bit of improvement. What do you think about this series? 7-game series?
Feels that way.
Right.
I think the Celtics will live with Durant playing better. They're going to have to. He's not going to go 9 for 24 again, even though they played great defense on him. I mean, Grant Williams was excellent early on, being physical, and then when he got into foul trouble, Tatum took over, and I saw some numbers on, kind of how well Tatum played defensively. The guys he was guarding just weren't scoring, and when they were scoring, it was really low percentage. So I think the Celtics will live with the kind of one-on-one-ish coverage that they have on Durant. What they're wary about and have been all week is who's that third guy? Like, if Kyrie goes for 30 and Durant goes for 40, fine, we'll live with 70. We don't want Bruce Brown doing what he did in the play-in game where he had 18 points. And even, look, the first half, what did Goran Dragic have in the first half? Like 11 points?
Yep.
Like, that was certainly nerve-wracking to the coaching staff there. It's like, we can't allow Goran to come off the bench and be that kind of player. So, look, if Durant gets 30 points and needs 30 shots to get it, they're going to call it a win. If Kyrie, needs as many shots as points, they'll take that. It's just they're wondering if Seth's going to go off with those 3-point shots, or if Dragic or Brown or anybody else, even Claxton, getting points in the paint. So it's more those guys than it is Durant and Kyrie that worry the Celtics.
I think we can all agree Kessler Edwards is not going to do anything.
He's not. No, that is correct.
He is
About
Chris
as much
Mannix.
as Sam Hauser will do there.
He is Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated NBA insider. Chris, thanks so much for joining Takeline. Say hi to Nia Long. Enjoy the rest of the series. It's going to be a fun one. Yeah.
Please.
You got it, fellas.